Howdy there, folks. This is Lapidary Dave, and right now I'm going to show you folks how I drill gemstones using diamond rotary bits, rotary burrs, diamond Dremel burrs, whatever you call them. I use two burrs in particular when I'm drilling a gemstone, rounded burrs, and I also use cylinder burrs. All of the rest I use usually for sculpting or for reaming beads that already have a hole to make them bigger. But these 30 packs come with a few different size rounded burrs, which is important because the size of the rounded burr governs the size of the hole. Using this particular pack, which is a 1/8 inch shank, 80 grit, I can get holes about 2.5 millimeter all the way much bigger than, I would say, 10 millimeter. This right here is about 4. All of these stones here I drilled last night using these burrs in no time. The same technique that I use for going through the face of a stone, I also use when I go through a stone long ways. The only difference is I have to make sure to be a lot more straight when I'm going deeper into a stone. So there's no difference in technique on how deep I'm drilling. I will be drilling this beautiful piece of petrified wood. This is a special piece to me. I really enjoy how I can tell it was a limb slice. Just fantastic, much like you would find in its still organic form or whatever. This is going to get drilled. I don't have it on me, but I will be marking this with a paint pen, and I have a Sharpie, but that's not what I'm going to use. The mark doesn't have to be 100% accurate, because it kind of just helps me use my mind's eye and lets me see where the middle of the stone is. So if you see me later put my hole in a weird place, it's not that big of a deal. I often don't drill where the hole is, but it's just kind of marking to help me use my mind's eye. The particular burrs that I'm using are 80 grit. I don't use anything rougher than 80 grit, and I don't use anything finer than 80 grit when I drill. I use 60 and 36 for like sculpting, and I use finer burrs also for sculpting and for value, and sometimes I will ream with a finer burr after I've drilled with a rougher one to leave a finer finished hole on more precious gemstones. For instance, with this piece of Kingman turquoise, you can see the whiteness. It's really pale there. That's not because this stone is dyed or anything. It's just the finish is much paler from being cut with such a rough stone, much like if you were to lick this with a hard wheel. The finish would be really dry. If you don't want that, you can re-ream the hole with a finer burr, and it can leave a finish much like your polish from your machines, or by hand, or whatever you're doing. This 30 pack was $6. I've seen it go for a bunch of different prices all over the internet. The way I can always tell these burrs are the burrs that I'm used to is by this green foam here. And they're usually the between, I would say, like $5 and $15 casually on the internet. I have seen them even cheaper, but it was going to take like a month to get to the States from overseas, and I wasn't into that. I bought this in person live from the Johnson Brothers company at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, so I might have saved $1 or $2. Anyway, that's that. I'll explain my technique and how I use two burrs when I get into the garage. See you folks there. Alright folks, I'm here in the garage. I will not be drilling this piece of petrified wood for you folks live. I already drilled it, but I didn't enjoy my presentation. And the same goes for the stone I tried to drill after that. It just didn't work out. It's kind of a hard topic to explain. So I'll be drilling this piece of petrified bogwood and showing you my process. What I'm about to show you folks, the technique works well on both soft and hard stones. I'll be carving this stone because it's very tough. This is petrified bogwood. This particular variety is extremely hard. Much harder than quartz. I would say about as hard as nephrite jade. This is some nice material I got from Roger, Yukon Roger. Anyway, yeah. So I will be starting with a rounded burr. Again, the size of the rounded burr that you start with governs the size of the hole you're gonna be leaving. And then I will be switching to a cylinder burr. These are the only two kind of burrs I use for drilling stones from scratch. When it already has a 1mm hole in it, like a beading bead, I will sometimes use these pointed ones to ream. These are pretty dangerous. I just recently hurt myself using these. A stone broke and I poked myself in the finger. I couldn't play music properly for a while. So I almost never ever use these pointed ones for drilling from scratch. These are pretty much just for reaming. Yep, just use the rounded ones in the cylinder. Okay, so I have my drinking water container. I want a trickle like this. I don't want a powerful stream, and I don't want a simple drip. I need a little bit more than that, but anything too much more than what I need just becomes messy. I'll be starting with the side of the burr and then moving the machine upwards to make it straight. The reason why I start with the side of the burr is to take a little bit of that load off of the top. I end up wearing out the top of the burrs right away, and the sides of the burrs have plenty of diamond. If I start the cut on the side and then move the burr straight up, it really takes a lot of the wear and tear off of the very top of the stone. You can go straight on because you're not trying to drill straight through using this burr. You're just trying to leave an indent. You don't even need it to be halfway. I often tell folks not to go more than halfway. This stone, I won't have a problem with that because of how hard it is, but on softer stones, even if you feel like you can go all the way, don't do it. You'll get very intense blowout from the back from one of these burrs. I'll explain that a little bit more here in a few. So I'm going to start. I'm going to make a dent where I would like my my hole to be in my stone. I'll be putting a little mark with a paint pen there really quick. This is not exactly where the hole is going to be, but rather it's a little spot that helps me use my mind's eye to see where I want it to be drilled. It also lets me see roughly where the center is. Sometimes the colors can make that a little misleading, and so just putting a little something helps. Again, I'm not drilling all the way through, not even halfway through. I'm just making a good dent with this rounded burr. Alright, I got my bite. Now I'm moving it straight up and down. I don't want to hold my burr sideways too long because I'll misshape my hole. And that's that. Okay, so there's my dent. That is the first step of this process. That was already there. That's just a little natural thing in the bogwood. In this piece is very asymmetrical, so I'm not 100% dissatisfied with this hole being just a little bit over here. If this was a piece that I didn't tumble but grinded, I could easily grind the side to make the hole more centered. But that's good enough for me. This is going to be a pendant. Yeah. So that was awesome. This is the dent is less than halfway through the stone. I actually prefer that because it just, I feel like it helps in the end to prevent some blowout. And also, using the cylinder burrs, you're more or less pulverizing using the top flat part of the burr, where those rounded burrs have just a much larger surface that need to pound their way through the stone. I guess what I'm trying to say is this skinnier burr just has a lot less work to do than the larger ones will. Has a lot less material to go through. Anyway, she's on there. She's nice and tight. I'm going to place my burr inside the dent because I don't want to try to like hit the dent when it's spinning. In case I hit the sides of the stone and ruin my finish, I'd have to go back to the grinder. Hopefully not back to the rough wheels. But that's a waste of time. So I'm going to place the burr inside of the dent. I'm going to turn it on full monkey. I'm going to be careful not to have my fingers back there because even though this is not pointed but a cylinder, if I'm pushing hard enough I could still hurt myself. I've done it before. So full monkey. Light pressure. After a while, you know when your burr is biting, you can feel it cutting. Making sure to get enough water on that. I can hang out for a second without water. It's not that big of a deal, but you do want a good flow of water. Okay, I felt the burr come through the back. I was talking about blowout before. There is a little bit of blowout around that hole. If you can see there, hopefully. It's not that big of a deal. If you don't meet the stone halfway on both sides, like using a set of calipers or marking each side, you're going to get blowout most likely. And my whole technique, the method is to, predict a blowout, which is why we're using a smaller burr the second time. It's going to leave a smaller hole, which is going to leave less blowout. And then to switch back to the original burr, which will not only ream the hole to a larger hole, but it'll also clean up the blowout. And that is my 2-burr technique. I'm going to get some more water on here. And this time I'm going to start on the side that blew out. This is the side that I started with. You see here the hole is looking a little bit larger there because I started with this rounded burr. This side has the blowout and it's a much smaller hole. The idea is when I ream this, all the blowout will get taken care of. Let's see how that works out. It worked fantastically. So here we are. This is the side that had the blowout and the smaller hole. If you see, it's nice and clean. That's because when we were reaming it, it took care of all the chips that got blown out. And here is the side that I originally started with. If there was rough blowout around the hole, still, I could take it to a wheel and just get rid of those little chips that were left that the larger burr could not take care of. Anyway, that's my technique. I do the same thing I do with stones that I just drill through the surface. I use the same technique when I drill shallow stones, like when I drill through the surface, that I use when I drill deep stones, or deeper holes through wider stones. I just have to make sure to be a little bit more straight when I'm using my cylinder burr. If you folks are interested, you don't need to buy a big 30-pack. If you want, you can buy high-quality cylinders and rounded burrs, just the two things that you're really going to need for drilling. This is my technique. There's a million ways to skin a cat. And this is the way that I drill. But, yeah, some folks might prefer to use hollow core burrs. I use hollow core burrs on my water swivel. But yeah, this is how I drill using my cheap lithium Dremel and my even cheaper Walmart Hyper Tool rotary tool. Hyper tough rotary tool. I would have used this, and I actually bought this to use on this video to show you that you can do what I just did with a $13 Walmart rotary tool, but I dropped it on the mandrel, and now it's really bad, and I just pretty much use it for sculpting, hogging out stone, and buffing. But I will probably get another one and do a lapidary video on what you can do with a $13 Walmart rotary tool. Anyway, that's that. I hope you folks enjoyed. I'm going to take this inside and chat just a little bit more about drilling. That was fun. Alright folks, here's that beautiful finished piece of petrified bogwood. This piece was only finished to about 600 grit, but it looks fantastic. I actually enjoy the organic finish and texture. Here's the piece that I started with. This is going to make a fantastic pendant. I will go back and polish the faces. The sides are going to be a little bit difficult. I think I'm going to leave them at about the 600 grit finish, but the faces will shine. All of these other stones are takes of me trying to make this video. It was really tough. I didn't want to skip any of the process, but I didn't want to be too confusing. Just in case I am a little confusing, I went ahead and made another quick 5-minute video of my 2-burr drilling process. This one's very nice. Thank you so much, folks. If anyone has any questions, of course, go ahead and shoot them to me. Yeah, the burrs I was using were the Johnson Brothers 80 grit 1/8 inch shank. JohnsonBrothers.com. Alrighty. And I was using this little Dremel, but that Walmart rotary tool would work just fine. I prefer a flex shaft, but I actually don't have one going on right now. See you folks. Love you. See you next time.